edition of Mika Amcha Yisrael, Parashat Emor. Our pasuk reads, "V'lo techalalu et Shem Kachi, v'nigdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael, ani Hashem mikadishchem." You shall not profane my holy name, but I will be sanctified among b'nei Yisrael. I am Hashem, who makes you holy. This is the continuing story of our people. Dark clouds began to cover the skies of Europe, the clouds of Nazism. In spite of the terrible decrees, the yellow patch and the ghettos, most Jews couldn't fathom what was about to befall them. Only a few managed to escape the clutches of the Nazi occupation to safe havens. One of them was Reb Shaul Yedidia Elazar Taub, the Mozhitzer Rebbe, whose Hasidim made a tremendous effort to save him. He was smuggled out of Poland to Lithuania, and then from there he made his way across Russia to Shanghai, and then eventually he arrived in America in 1940. Meanwhile, in Poland, tens of thousands of Jews were being shipped off to their death in cattle cars that took them to a place where their existence would no longer trouble the Nazis in Machshamam, Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Bergen-Belsen. Inside the crowded cars, over the clatter of cattle car wheels, rose the sounds of people gasping, sighing, weeping, dying. Men, women, and children crying out for a little air and water had been brutally crammed in by the Nazi bestia Machshamam. People stood pressed against one another, groaning quietly. But in one such car, headed towards the infamous death camp of Treblinka, the sound of singing could be heard. An elderly Jew, wrapped up in his ragged clothing, his face was white as snow, was in the process of recalling the Yom Kippur Tefillot back home. Rabbi Azriel David Fastag was a Mozhitzer Hasid known for his beautiful voice, a Hazan and a composer of Hasidic tunes before World War II. In his mind, Rabbi Azriel Hashem Yimkom Damav was standing at the Amud next to his Rebbe on Kippur. And it was he who was leading the prayer before the Rebbe and all the Hasidim. Suddenly, there appeared before his eyes the words of the 12th of the 13 principles of Jewish faith. Excuse me. Ani Maamin be'emunah shelema b'viyat HaMoshiach v'af al pi shitmamea im kol ze achak lo b'chol yom sheyavo. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Mashiach B'ezrat Hashem, and even though he may tarry, nevertheless I wait each day for his coming. Closing his eyes, he meditated on these words and thought, just now when everything seems lost, is a Jew's faith put to the test. He began to hum a quiet tune. There, amidst the death and despair on the train to Treblinka, the Hasid was transformed into a pillar of purity, bringing forth the song of the eternity of the Jewish people. He was unaware of the silence in the cattle car and of the hundreds of ears listening attentively. Soon everyone on the train was singing the moving, haunting melody together with him as they were transformed from human wreckage into beacons of hope and faith. The song spread from car to car. Every mouth that could still draw breath joined in Rabbi Azriel's Ani Maamin. As if waking from a dream, Rabbi Azriel opened his eyes to the side of the singing train. His eyes were red from crying, his cheeks wet with tears. After some time had passed and they had sung the melody many times, Rabbi Azriel asked for silence. And in a choked voice, he cried out, "I'll give half of my Olam Haba to whoever can take my song to the Mozhitzer Rebbe." A hushed silence descended upon the train. The idea seemed so fanciful and far-fetched. How would any one of the prisoners on a locked train to a death camp manage to get Ani Maamin to New York? Then two young men appeared, promising to bring the song to the Rebbe at any cost. One of them climbed up upon the other's shoulders and, finding a small crack on the train's roof, broke out a hole from which to escape. Bidding farewell to their brothers and sisters on the train, the two proceeded to jump off, one after the other. One was killed, Rahman al-Islam, instantly from the fall. The other survived. Taking the memory of the song with him, he eventually found his way to Eretz Yisrael, and the notes were sent by mail to the Mozhitzer Rebbe in New York. Upon receiving the notes and hearing Rabbi Azriel's tune of the Ani Maamin sung before him, the Mozhitzer Rebbe exclaimed, When they sang Ani Maamin on that death train, the pillars of the world were shaking. The Almighty Himself said, and I quote, "Whenever Jews will sing Ani Maamin, I will remember the 6 million victims and have mercy on the rest of my people." Legend has it that on the first Yom Kippur that the Mozhitzer Rebbe sang the Ani Maamin, there were thousands of Jews in the shul. The entire congregation burst into tears, which fell like water into the pools of tears and blood of the Jewish people. The tune soon spread throughout world Jewry. With this nigun, said Rebbe Shol Yedidia Elazar, the Jewish people went to the gas chambers. But with this nigun, the Jews will march to greet Mashiach b'meira b'yameinu. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey from Warsaw to Treblinka was less than 2 hours, and at Treblinka there were no selections or factories. Jews simply arrived and were murdered, an hour at most. And thousands of Jews who traveled together on the same train would go up in flames. And yet this unspeakable journey, in this short time, produced an altogether extraordinary melody. For every tune, there are words that sit just right. Every poem has a tune that's perfectly suited to wrap around it. There are many tunes that are lost in the world, as well as a great number of words that have not yet found their melody. Only rarely, in a moment of grace, or in an instant of profound inner truth, in a stroke of genius, or in the opening of one's heart, does the miracle of a union come about between a melody and words. This melody, for the words Ani Maamin, is one of those very special occasions. The unwavering and incorrigible faith that ultimately the Master of the universe will reveal His face, and the world will be good, prevails here over the greatest challenge that has ever presented itself. The Jewish nation was on its way to be killed, utterly helpless and hopeless, with the spark of faith itself, the only illumination in the world at that time. Mi K'Amcha Yisrael. No one. Shabbat Shalom u'Mivorach.